Good to see you again, Justin. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. How
We're
are
good,
you?
man. We're good. Yeah, I feel like a bit of a blast from the past. I think we had a bunch of interactions back in the hype of the last cycle. You've been a very active builder. I mean, creator, artist, and a builder in crypto. And it seems like you've been infatuated with this sort of, let's just call it creator economy more generally. It seems to me as if folks that are in the music business have felt the pain of how fucked up it all is more so than anybody else, and have seemed to be leading the charge here and trying to chart a different path forward. So maybe you can, yeah, what's the gap in the world of the problem that you're solving here with Bond?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general, a lot of people, when they think about blockchains and how they can solve problems for creators, the natural gravitation is to this big word monetization, right? Like, how do creators use this technology to make more money to support their art? And what I found in my many years of just experimenting with crypto is that there's actually a prerequisite that's quite important to the idea of monetization. And that's just knowing who cares about you online, which is something that you don't get to access through any Web2 platform. Spotify at the end of every year says, hey, Justin, the top 1% of your fans would love to hear from you. What would you like to say to them? And like my top 1% of listeners, I'd love to just know who they are and then get to talk to them and give them access to backstage at my show. Like these are things that Web2 database driven social media companies just don't allow, and for obvious reason. And so we think blockchains, and I've thought blockchains can be a huge solution for creators to sort of establish a new type of CRM.
Interesting. I remember I worked in the music business for 2 years, and I remember in the early days of Spotify, and it just seemed to me like giving an opportunity for a fan to give me their email address would have been far more valuable than whatever pennies they were paying per stream back then. And it's crazy just how disintermediated, I guess, that entire industry is, and this entire, I mean, there's SaaS products and different ticketing platforms. Everybody's trying to sort of back into ultimately solving this issue where you might have millions and millions of streamers every single month, and yet absolutely zero way to ask them something, to send them something, to do anything with. So big issue. And so how are we solving it with Bond?
Yeah, and so our new product that we just launched is a one-time refundable subscription to any creator that you want to support and believe in return for that stake, right? So you're actually bonding money to that creator. The creator earns interest on that money while your money is bonded. And in return, you represent how much you actually care about the creator. So some people could bond $10,000, $1,000, $1. The creator now knows who cares about them most, and the user or fan gets access to all their exclusive content. And so one day, if somebody feels like they want to take their money out, they can just unbond it instantaneously, and the creator gets to keep the interest they've earned along the way. But we found that no one's really unbonded yet in the first week that the product has been live, because we think that Bond is a kind of innovative DeFi-oriented form of patronage.
Is the hypothesis that I guess this refundable model will attract way more patronage than what you would see on, I guess, Patreon or kind of these Web2 platforms?
Exactly. So the question I ask anyone when it comes to like how many people would actually use this, I don't subscribe to any people. I subscribe to a couple services. I subscribe to Netflix, to Hulu, to HBO, etc. Do you guys subscribe to anyone outside of maybe a couple of Substack writers?
If Ben Thompson at Stratechery is like my only one, probably.
Great one, but only one, right? And so the question is, how many more people would you be willing to stake money on, knowing that they can recognize how much they can now recognize you, not just as one of the many subscribers, but as somebody who deeply cares about their thoughts, about their content, about whatever it is that they're publishing online. And what we found is most people are like, oh yeah, I'd do that. I have money sitting around in my checking account. Why not put it on a creator I care about who can actually earn interest from it, then let it sit in a checking account earning zero, right? And so now you can sort of think of stake and of bonded money as a form of a vote of confidence in participation and in recognition of all the favorite creators that you love. And one of the things also worth mentioning is, you guys have been around following the space for a long time, and you've seen every iteration of a creator crypto product. We wanted to build something that had no reputational risk for the creator and really couldn't be extractive to the fan. And we felt that those two things were really important in taking creative crypto to the next level. And so building this on Morpho and building sort of the yield mechanism, we felt was a way to really capture the benefits of blockchains without the negatives.
Yeah, interesting. I assume you're targeting a largely not crypto native audience for this. So I'm curious what those conversations with both creators and prospective patronage people, I guess, are going. Do the patrons, do they understand what's going on here?
What's really interesting is we've had almost 100, there's one exception to the rule, but almost every single creator that I've spoken to, hey guys, this is the first crypto product that you don't have to worry about all the negative things that you've heard online about NFTs and about meme coins. All you have to do is create an account to get set up, and your fans can't lose money. That's a part of the pitch. Of course, the pitch is more of a lot of the stuff that I've already said. And we basically have 100% hit rate on creators. So we have Timbaland on there. We have, Tiffany Fong, who's got a big Twitter presence on there. A couple of my famous DJ friends like Loud Luxury, who have a song with 1 billion streams on it. Surf Mace is another DJ that uploaded a bunch of unreleased versions of his music to his files section. So if you stake or bond money to him, you can actually go listen to that stuff. And it's just way easier to convince a creator from the non-crypto world that this is a really interesting idea, because they don't want to ask their fans to like, comment, subscribe. It's a little bit cheesy, but if you ask them to bond, it's more meaningful and also doesn't necessarily cost anything. So we've had a really easy time convincing creators in the 1 week that we've been live. On the user side, we're pretty well aware that the friction for on-ramping into crypto is still relatively high. Today, you need a debit card and an Apple Pay to really get money converted to USDC to use on the platform. And the platform is built on Base. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching credit cards. So you can actually Apple Pay into stable coins on Bond. We're also going to be offering tons of different incentives over the next couple of weeks, where if you join, you can choose to bond $5. Let's say you have zero money in your account. We use all embedded wallets with Privy. So you can just sign up with email and we'll send you $5 to bond to any of the creators that you love and enjoy. And so the onboarding process and getting the mainstream users involved in crypto has sort of been a passion of mine since we all met in the first place. And we feel that the tech is finally there today. The tech and regulation both are in a great position for us to innovate and take crypto to the next generation of users.
I mean, I'm fascinated with this category, this yield as a funding mechanism. I've been working on this post, and we see it applied in a bunch of interesting places. So I think USD AI and Daylight Energy are sort of using it to tap into deeper pools of liquidity to reduce the cost of borrowing, because they are essentially fronting the cost of either buying GPUs or buying batteries and solar panels. And then I think there's Flying Tulip, which is trying to compete with building a DEX basically, and they have this real novel mechanism where whatever money you invest into it, you can pull it out at any point in time. You just sort of forego the tokens, but your sort of base is protected. And I think those are just absolutely fascinating models that take advantage of this huge growth in stable coins. And I guess it's a different type of trust. Your downside is protected. And it feels like it's logical to me that would really unlock a lot more activity, more deposits, more participation. I think one of the challenges as I try to apply that model more broadly is I wonder what sort of scale is ultimately required here to make this work. And so I guess I'm curious if you see this as something that's going to be mostly for those folks with super fans and huge distribution. Does this work for somebody that's more up and coming? How do you sort of think about the scale that this needs to work at?
That's a fantastic question. And before we get to answering the scale question, which I think is a really important one, rewinding to something else you mentioned, where you've started to see more applications of yield sort of take shape throughout the ecosystem, given the growth of stablecoins. And I don't know if you guys know this, but stablecoins actually represent today over 1% of money in circulation, which is a pretty huge statistic. It's in the Andreessen yearly crypto report that they just published recently, and was a big surprise to me, a pleasant surprise. And then, of course, you can see, the way we design this product is mainly for creators at the get-go, but you can sort of see all these different other applications, whether it's membership to a club, and the yield is how the club pays for certain activities and engagements within the club that may require a higher amount of dollars to stake, right? To be entered into this club that somebody designs. You could think of this as a mechanism for something like GoFundMe, where someone has medical debt, but instead of donating to pay off the medical debt, you bond money and the end user can use that money to pay off medical debt over time. This is just scratching the surface of how yield can be a tool for regular people to try different things, whereas yield has only ever been a financial tool for banks and for treasuries and for your interactive brokers account, right? And for your 401k. So bond is really just a stepping stone into thinking about how yield plays a role in every aspect of life when there is a financial transaction or a financial balance. So I just wanted to say that before getting into the scale part, which is, a big part of bond is the bragging right of being number one on the leaderboard. So we have two types of leaderboards today, and there's going to be a third, which we can get to. Leaderboard A is how much money have you bonded, right? Like how much do you care? What's your financial vote of confidence in this direction of the creator? The second is how long you've been bonded. So for people that are there early, but don't necessarily have the funds to stake a lot of money, they're recognized as well, right? Because they're early supporters of the creator. Now let's get to your question on scale. I can sort of see this going in a couple of different ways. You can have a small artist that doesn't have a huge traditional social media following, but has, let's call it 1,000 dedicated fans, the 1,000 true fan theory. If those fans are willing to put up, $1,000 each, which might be a lot of money. Let's maybe make the example $100 each, just for better sake, right? And remember, that $100 isn't lost; it can be unbonded at any time. So you have 1,000 true fans that are all willing to pay $100 each. Now, these are fans that would otherwise be buying merch for that amount of money, or buying for tickets, or paying for tickets, or doing all these other things. That creator is earning, 6.5% per year, and it's not just about that amount of money. Which, let's be real, at that scale of $100,000 bonded, maybe that's not a ton of money, but the benefit to the creator is that they know who really cares, right? And so now you open up the monetization mechanisms for everything else. If they want to go sell tickets, they're going to sell tickets to that audience, not the void of the algorithm that they're otherwise marketing to on Twitter or Instagram, right? And so there's like two sides of it. The larger scale side of it is if you have a huge following of 1 million followers on Instagram or on Twitter or wherever that might be. In my case, I have 6 billion streams across all different streaming platforms, and have no idea who those people are, right? Like, so even if you capture a small percentage of that and they stake or bond just $1, that's pretty meaningful income on a yearly basis to support an artist. The conversion is going to be the challenge because crypto has had so much friction historically on onboarding. But I think this cycle is the cycle we see that changing, especially with the Clarity Act, with all these things happening. I think this is the cycle that we see mainstream onboarding happen in a way and at a scale that we haven't seen yet in the history of crypto.
Yeah, we're very on board with that. I am curious about. I mean, I guess two things. One, this is. You ever heard of Kiva? It was sort of very popular back in the early Web 2 days.
Oh yeah,
right. And I think every once in a while I still get. I mean, I'd probably put a couple $100 into this thing, and every once in a while you could lend. It was sort of like crowd lending, right? You could lend to places where $10 would have a real big impact, and the repayment rate was crazy high, right? And so every once in a while I'll get an email being like, "Oh, you have $25 to relend here," and that's kind of the thing here where it's actually I'm not even putting that underlying capital up to risk really whatsoever. I can have basically a check or a savings account that I can go do good things with, whether that's with creators or that's with causes I care about, etc. And so through that lens, I mean, the scale question on an individual creator one maybe is bigger in my mind if I think about creators as being like the only opportunity. But if I sort of think of this in the terms of like a savings account that I get to go do good things with, seems like, yeah, it's a interesting market.
And it's a new, the idea sort of formed in March of this year. My brother, who would have loved to be here today to chat about this, was at Andreessen for 3.5 years. He's seen every Creator Crypto pitch while he was there, came up with the architecture of this idea and joined my team in March. When he mentioned the original version of the idea to me, I was just like, the unlock here is huge. Because you could sort of think of this as a stepping stone to all the other cool things you want to build in crypto that maybe do have more financial stake beyond just the bond itself, or the ability for the creator to actually bring people that care about them most into the fold, into the creative process, So for me on my bond profile, today there's no restrictions on how much money you bond to get access. Like in the future, a creator can set thresholds, right? Like you need to bond $1,000 for this or this for this, right? But today you can listen to 12 unreleased songs of mine that aren't out in the world yet just by bonding $1. And so we hope to demonstrate all the different ways that not just musicians, but other types of creators, whether it be podcasters like yourselves, where, you know, maybe someone really wants to be a guest on the show, and so they bond $1,000 to make themselves known to you. And I think, or I'd like to hope, given they're a credible and not maybe psycho person, that you probably have them on the show, right? And so there's like an infinite number of combinations of things that we're just starting to explore because we are only in week 2 of the product being live, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from users. Some people are like, "This is cool, but how do I invest in this artist?" And there's lots of stuff that we have to think about. But it's a great. We felt like this would be the lowest friction gateway to onboarding the masses to creator crypto stuff.
How do you think about that go to market? Because it feels like integrations are showing up. Yeah. Are you thinking about trying to get this integrated into various places, or is this sort of an app that's a destination that you want to go and build a sort of focus on download?
We want to help creators where they already are. So like while we have some features on Bond where you can, chat and share files and broadcast, we want, we're building a system of embeds and other types of things where when someone's on Twitch, and somebody bonds to that creator while they're on Twitch, it pops up in a feed, right? Like we definitely think that trying to convince everybody to join a new social platform, like we're not trying to compete with the Farcasters of the world or the Twitters of the world or any of that. We're trying to build a novel mechanism that represents an online relationship that is more than a follow, because a follow is effectively meaningless in this bot economy, especially on Twitter. You notice it, and a subscription is kind of meaningless too, because not only do people have subscription fatigue, but just subscribing doesn't mean that the end creator, the receiver of that subscription, necessarily knows who you are. And someone like me, like if I ever convinced Radiohead to join the platform, which that would be crazy, and I'd love to have a conversation with them, I would bond $100,000 to Radiohead because they've had that much impact on my life and my youth and my musical journey. And then I'd hope that they'd recognize me for that, right? And so there's when you start asking yourself, okay, like who would I bond to if they were on the platform? I imagine you could think of a lot of people that you'd be willing to bond $1,000 to. And we actually just got our first. We've had a couple of over $1,000 bonds, but my brother's friend actually bonded $1,000 to his profile yesterday. You could also see a world where people are bonding to each other and the interest is earned anyway, right? So like I bond to someone in a certain dollar amount, they bond to me. Now there's a public signal of our reputational strength between each other, and we're both earning interest on the money anyway.
Well,
So there's a lot of ways
games here that it's probably they're the willing. I think one of the interesting, you mentioned A16Z. Chris Dixon has that great post about why decentralization matters, and then also just like the power of tokens being able to capture different parts of the demand curve. I'm not sure if that was in the same post or not, but I think that's, if you've studied mobile gaming, or if you sort of looked even at subscriptions capture, demand at one price. And, if I use my own example here of Ben Thompson, like, yeah, would I love to be able to have some unique access to him, or for him to know, or whatever? And if there's no risk to me, like I could just imagine people being willing to put like significant sums of money up for us normal people, probably a fraction for some of these folks, just to get that access or notoriety around it. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of the distribution looks like as far as capital that gets put up, and maybe we end up in a place where you still have a small number of people really dominating the sort of TVL contribution here. Pretty likely in my mind, but I don't know if I had that in mind as I was first thinking about this. The willingness of somebody to really, because to really signal.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the creator as well, right? So I think it depends on if it's. If it's T Swift and you can Apple Pay $1 to get if T Swift joins, publishes a bunch of music, and for Apple Pay $1 you can get access to it, that's a different side of the scale. If you're, for instance, like a crazy idea that I've had because I've gotten into watch collecting recently, if you're like FP Journe and you only make 1,500 watches per year, but your fan base is incredibly dedicated, this is an audience of people that would be staking way more money just to get access to the conversation.
I mean, the
so
Ferrari
it's like,
buying game basically is literally you're staking money on shittier cars, so you get an opportunity to go get more. So
and so we see this in other places in life. The creators just haven't had, to me, and this is from a conversation with when we first told Ben Horowitz this idea, who Andreessen is an investor in Royal, which has now joined Bond, and Ben said something really profound that we've been using since he said this. If you're an e-commerce platform, if you're a B2B SaaS service platform, whatever it might be, you have a CRM, right? And whatever CRM you choose to use, there's tons, right? For any creator on the internet, there is no CRM except for an email list. That's about it. It's about all you've got. And so all that rich data that's being accumulated to all the platforms where your content is posted, or your podcast episodes are hosted, or wherever it is, that data is so rich and valuable, and is the most important aspect of how blockchains can solve the monetization problem versus just selling NFTs or just launching a meme coin that has the potential to be extractive. And I think that going through personal experience of this, right, having launched an NFT collection in the early days and not launched one since, I think a lot of creators are feel the stigma of crypto given certain historic events. And so we think that this is just a really nice stepping stone to get people on board, to get people using wallets, thanks to our partners Privy, who make it super, super easy to get signed up. And we give them a little taste of how crypto can feel when it's non-extractive, and we hope they come back. And I think that's like, again, we're only 1 week in here. We have a lot of work to do. And I think when we get credit cards, it's going to be credit card to stablecoin conversion. I think we're going to be able to attract a wider audience than crypto has ever seen when it comes to the creator economy projects.
I think you guys need to go after the OnlyFans audience. I think it's
everyone comes to that.
Dude, it's like
everyone.
I think it's the place that patronage is the most alive and well on the internet. I think so.
It is.
It's a pretty obvious.
What we'd love
market.
to do is build a plugin where instead of where other platforms can say, instead of committing to a subscription, you can just bond money here.
I mean, it is a DeFi platform or a composable Lego here, right? And I think it's it's interesting if you think about on top of a pool, what other functionality is needed to kind of unlock this new type of user behavior or action, and then how do you make that easy to go and plug in anywhere? It feels like there's this big horizontal opportunity here. If you believe that yield as a funding source is a novel new mechanism, I would expect it to be applied in many different places. It'd probably work in a few of them very well, but I think it's interesting. To me, this is, if I think about funding evolution and sort of how the internet is going to have a big impact on, as social media and blockchains come together to go and change who can participate and what we ultimately fund. I think this category is one of the more exciting ones. I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know what scale is necessary for it. I don't know where the unique sort of angles are, but definitely one worth watching. And for folks who haven't participated in this stuff before, I think it is worth doing it. We're seeing at the more sort of speculative end, people tying in allocation to their token launches and as a way of sort of incentivizing larger pools. So we'll see how that goes. And I think what you guys are doing here is also a very interesting approach. So 1 week, man, I didn't realize it was just 1 week old. I'm glad that we got you on here early.
1 week since we announced it. It's been live for a minute. We went through extensive audits, right? Like before we told the public, we wanted to debug a lot of things. It's a relatively simple like smart contract code on the back end. But the beauty is, we built this front end to get people onboarded. Anyone can use this, right? And so if another platform is interested in trying this mechanism instead of as another option beyond just a subscription, they can, soon hopefully have that integration. And so making this all happen on chain is so key, right? Having the composable smart contracts where you can, like, even if an artist really wanted to, they could take this to their own website. And they don't necessarily need us. And that's where things get really interesting because we are doing some work on the vault design side of Morpho. Right now, we use the Spark Vault on Base, Bitcoin-backed loans. tried and true, what Coinbase uses. But in the future, a creator could choose their own vaults to establish the yield, right? And so that composability factor, we think, as more people learn about the idea, people might get really creative. People might even get speculative with what kind of vault they choose. We are obviously pushing them to use the lowest risk vault, but
I mean, they will.
Avoid stream finance, please. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of these things where clearly the primitive is wildly interesting. I think the inflection point is someone getting really creative and the hero use case emerging that opens everyone else's eyes to what's possible and being like, oh shit, like that's new. So good luck in your pursuit of figuring out the right person to go do that and the right mechanisms to go do that with.
Yeah, and in the early NFT days, I was glad that for music, that person was kind of me, and we couldn't really follow it up. We tried in a lot of different ways to make it sustainable. It was kind of an accident, right? But we do need that one story of either a big artist bringing in a lot of fans that bond, or a small artist bringing in 10 fans that are just super fans and really want that level of engagement. And the more stories and narratives we stack like that, the easier it is to bring this idea to the masses.
Justin, appreciate you hopping on, man. It's at Justin Blau and at Join Bond. You can go to actually, I want to make sure I get the URL here correct. It is joinbond.xyz. If you're interested in how yield is going to be used to fund creativity, new and interesting ways, might as well hop in there, man. It sounds like you got some of your fans in there, some unreleased tracks. Yeah.
And some other cool people.
I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. And again, very stoked to see. I know the challenge of sort of having something kind of break out in an era and then needing to figure out what the next right thing is. And I think it's underrated how complicated that can be. You also see so many people fall off. So just stoked to see you continuing to push forward with something new and novel here, and wish you all the best in it.
Thank you so much, guys. It's an honor to be here.
All right, man.